Hello, History of St. Louis, and welcome to the second lesson for Unit 2. Today we talk about the area that is just southwest of the downtown area known as Soulard. It was one of the first neighborhoods to be incorporated into the city limits and is probably one of the most famous neighborhoods in the city of St. Louis today. So we're going to do a pretty comprehensive look at what's actually down there. Uh, you should have been assigned a Soulard fact sheet, so make sure you have that out and you can jot down notes as we go through this. So this is the area that is Soulard today. Basically, here is downtown St. Louis. This dark rectangle right up here is the Arch Grounds. This is the old Busch Stadium. Most of my students have no idea what this looked like in real life. But basically, this is where the current Busch Stadium is. And so just southwest is the area known as Soulard, and it's highlighted here in the red. Soulard Market is going to be up in this area of Soulard, and then this whole gamut of Soulard, this whole complex of buildings is nothing but, you guessed it, the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. And so all of these buildings right here make up the Anheuser-Busch Brewery, and you can see that it's just a really big chunk of the Soulard area. For those of you who know your St. Louis geography, just across the way right over here is the old Lemp Brewery. So the breweries were here, and we'll discuss why a little bit later on in the course, why all these breweries popped up. Uh, on your worksheet, you have the boundaries of Soulard. Let's go ahead and take care of those. To the north, you have Highway 44. To the east, you have Broadway. Broadway is also known as 7th Street. You remember that all highways and roads, or all roads in downtown that are numbered run north-south. And so Broadway is really known as 7th Street, but it was named Broadway later on. And then the western boundary and southern boundary are Highway 55. So Highway 55 provides both the western boundary and then it curves to the south and creates our southern boundary. So those are our four boundaries that make up the Soulard area. And as you can see, it is basically about 4 or 5 blocks away from the Mississippi River. So it is pretty close. It is in walking distance of downtown, just that St. Louisans aren't used to walking downtown that much, but in the grand scheme of things, this would be a pretty simple walk to be able to do, especially taking Broadway straight down. Soulard is named after this gentleman right here, Antoine Soulard, and that is one of the answers. Why is it named after him? Well, to understand why it's named after him, you first have to understand what his job was in the St. Louis area. He was appointed as the Surveyor General, and so that's what his job was. What does a surveyor do? For those of you who don't know, a surveyor is the person who establishes what your property boundaries are. So when you buy a piece of property, you have to hire a surveyor, and that surveyor will put your four corners of your property so that you know exactly what is yours and what is your neighbor's. And so Antoine Soulard received the job of Surveyor General so that if anybody bought property in the St. Louis area, it was his job to go out and map it out and mark it off for those property owners. Part of his payment to doing that job was he received some acres of land that are now known today in the St. Louis area as Soulard. And so it is named after him because he was given that land as payment for his service, actually by the Spanish government at the time, for his Surveyor General activities. The Soulard area is probably today most known as the French neighborhood of St. Louis. But after that, after the French move in, it then goes through different transitions based on different immigrant groups. It received the nickname of Bohemian Hill because of the Bohemians. The Bohemians today would be known as the Czech Republic or people from the Czech Republic, except they didn't call them Czech back then, they called them Bohemian. And so it was nicknamed Bohemian Hill. The Soulard area is basically a giant hill that is sloping down toward the Mississippi River. And so if you're standing on Broadway looking into Soulard neighborhood, it's going to be sloping upward. If you're right in the middle of Soulard neighborhood and you're looking toward the river, it's going to be sloping downward. And so this was known as Bohemian Hill. You will know that many of you know that there's another hill area in the St. Louis area. That is the Italian Hill area, except it wasn't called the Italian Hill. It was called something else, which we'll go over later on in the course. But that became the famous hill. But this one was the next most famous hill in the area, and it was known as Bohemian Hill. As far as the architecture goes, there are going to be four elements of architecture that we're going to study. And in your worksheet, you have an architecture A, B, C, and D. Under the A section, you're going to go ahead and jot down the row house. Row houses were very popular because basically they are what we would consider today to be a duplex. If you take a look at this building right here, basically there was a master wall that separated this section of the building from this section of the building. And so one family would live over here on the left side of the building, and then there would be a separate family that would live on the right side, and they would have a master wall that divided them. As you can see with row houses, they are built right up to the street. There is a sidewalk. That sidewalk is your front yard. You do not have a front yard because you are in an urban setting. You also had very little, if any, side yard. Here we have an alley, so that's the side yard. And then very little to no backyard. There might be another alley back in the back. So there was very little space for you to need to take care of. Row houses are also popular because in Old St. Louis, you were taxed based on the number of windows that your property had. And so as you can see right here, there's only 3 on this side. There might be a couple on the back. You'll notice that there are none on the side. Obviously, there are none on this side because the building butts right up to it. And so you're literally paying a tax for maybe 3, or maybe you have a couple windows on the back. So you got 5 or 6. And that was a much more fair way, because in just a second, I'm going to show you some mansions in Soulard that have over 30. And so this was seen as a fair way to tax people because poor housing would have less windows and more expensive, affluent houses would have more windows. Are those row houses still around in Soulard today? As you can see, yes, they are. These are actually 4-family flats where you have a family that would live down here, and then if you walked into this door, there would be a door leading to the bottom left section, but then you would have another living section up here to the upper left. Then you would have a different family in the upper right, and then you would have a different family in the lower right. So these row houses were actually 4-family flats. Some of these have been converted into single-family homes. I did see one family converted in a very unique way. They bought it and then basically turned the entire lower right-hand section into an indoor pool. And so these kind of buildings have 2 front doors, one for the left side, one for the right side. When you walked into the front door of the right side, which you can't see, it opened up to an indoor swimming pool. And then your living room and dining room were over here, and then your bedrooms were up on the second and third stories. And so it was a very creative way to use the house. And basically, the second story here looked over the pool area. So I thought it was pretty cool. I got a house tour and got to see that. Obviously, that is like a diamond in the rough. You don't see that very often. This is what your front yard looks like, and in the Soulard area, you know that there are a lot of uh, restaurants and bars, and so your front yard, your sidewalk there might be populated with all sorts of people at night on the weekends, and then for sure, this place is rocking and rolling during Mardi Gras, which we will talk about in a little bit. The second type of architecture that you find in the Soulard area, and you don't see too many of them, but there are some, and there are some all over, they're sprinkled all over St. Louis, is called the Flounder House, because they tend to be very narrow, skinny houses. The Flounder House also is known as a half house because it literally looks like somebody took a saw and cut half of the house off. And so flounder houses or half houses are also well known. Again, they were smaller in size, and so they were available to be purchased by immigrant families and less affluent families that needed a small house or could only afford a small house. And so if you're only paying for half a house, then that's a lot more affordable. Here are some examples of other half houses in the St. Louis area. You can see here that with a half house, the front door is actually on the side of the house. And on this one, I'm guessing that it's tucked in right in this alleyway since I don't see anything right over here. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4 windows, and maybe you have something on the back side. So again, very fair way to do these as far as the tax code is concerned. So row houses and flounder houses are the well-known architectural styles. Now I'm going to highlight 2 different mansions that I want to show you. The first mansion, which would be letter C on your note sheet, is the Max Fierbacher Mansion. And you're going to want to write these little bullet points down underneath your letter C, and you're going to label that the Max Fierbacher Mansion. This house was built in 1874 for Max J. Fierbacher. He was a brewery owner, and his brewery was literally right down the street from this house. As you can see, some of the architectural features, which I will highlight in a little bit, include the bay windowed entrance. So they literally have the front door here jutting out from the front of the actual house. It is a little entryway that comes out. You also have hand-carved lions right here, which we will see a little bit more up close. And then you have the 3rd floor turret tower, which is right up here. All of these features are just for show. They don't have any real use other than, hi, I'm rich and I like to show it off. So you'll want to jot down those 3 little architectural features. And then you can also jot down as a claim to fame that it's one of Soulard's first mansions. Obviously, this was a working class neighborhood, but as people started making more and more money and their businesses such as breweries were popping up in this area, they wanted to live close to where they worked, and so they built these mansions. Let's take a look at some of these features up close. Here's a little bit closer view, and again, you can see that the front door here, this little section is popping out from the front of the building. So when you walk in, you're actually walking into kind of like a little mud room or entryway, and then the actual front door would be right behind these doors right here. As far as those hand-carved lions go, here they are up close. Again, there's nothing functional about these bad boys. These are just hand-carved. So it took a lot of attention to detail. Somebody chiseled those by hand out of pure blocks of stone. It looks like they've been painted over. And so that is just, hello, I am rich, come look at me. And then the third one is the turret tower up here, which is probably part of the attic space up here. Um, and the other thing that I wanted to highlight is that we said early on is that you were taxed on your number of windows. Um, I forgot to add one caveat. Those windows have to be below the roof line. So if this is the roof line, all of these windows down here would be taxed, but these would not because they are above the roof line. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We probably have another 10 on the other side, which makes 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and then we probably have some on the back side as well. So again, you're talking close to 30 windows. And obviously, because this was built just before electricity, those windows would serve as light, and more importantly, they would serve as air conditioning for the house. So there's your view of the Max Vierbacher mansion. There you go. The D1, another real famous mansion in the Soulard neighborhood, is the Franz Arts Mansion. So you'll jot that down under your letter D on your note page. Built in 1876, so again, these two houses popped up right around the same time. What is cool about this house is architecturally, it is the first house to be built with a steel frame rather than wood frames. Basically, most houses today, back in the past, always have had a wood frame because they're cheaper to build out of and it cuts your costs down. But Franz Arts wanted his house to be extremely stable, and so he got some old railroad rails and had those used as his steel frame for the house. This was also one of the first houses to have working plumbing. They had hot and cold water running into the house so that you didn't have to go outside and pump a well or get your water in buckets from a well. It was pumped to the house. And they tried to naturally air condition the bottom floor of the house by drilling holes in the corners, thinking that the cold air from the basement would rise up and cool the first floor of the house. Unfortunately, the laws of thermodynamics don't work that way, and as we all know, hot air rises, cold air sinks, and so I'm not sure that underground or that naturally air conditioned idea worked very well. This house is built a little bit on a hill or berm, and that is because underneath it they dug out an underground greenhouse. One of the hobbies of Franz Arts was that he liked to do botany and work with flowers. And so he had an underground greenhouse, and once electricity came to St. Louis, he had electric lights put in his greenhouse so that he could grow his plants underground in his little cave / underground greenhouse. The other thing that I want to highlight, and I'm going to show you this in the next picture, is the roof of this house. Decorative roofs like this are called mansard roofs. And I'm going to let you copy that down, and then on the next slide we'll get a zoomed in version of the house and you'll see what exactly a mansard roof is. Here is the mansard roof, and so you see that the roof decoratively extends down to the front of the house and really on all sides. And so technically your roof line is this element right here, not this. This is all considered the roof. And so here is your roof line, here is your roof line. So why did this become popular? Well, number one, because of its decorative nature, and especially with mansard roofs like this, you can get all sorts of wild color combinations, and you can have tiles with all sorts of colors, and you can see here and here they put tiles to mimic the appearance of flowers, again, because of his botany hobby. But the other reason, which we explained previously, is that if this is your roof line and this is your roof line, then this window is tax-free, this window is tax-free, this window on this side, this window on this side is tax-free. And so this was a way for you to get some tax-free windows with your house. Franz Artz was a doctor, and his doctor's office was literally right behind the house in the next building. So he literally was a hop, skip, and a jump away from his doctor's office. I know that this house has gone through some rehab. This is no longer what the side of the building looks like. This is all sort of a sunroom, and it's nothing but glass panels that basically make a giant sunroom, basically in the same size as you see this brick extension right here. Obviously, this was added later on at some point in time, and nowadays, and I don't have an updated picture, but this is a sunroom that is nothing but windows all the way around, and it really looks a lot nicer. You do see the stone wall in front of it, so it does have a little bit of a decorative fence or wall that separates the sidewalk from the property. And then another one, which you don't need to jot down, but this goes back to our look about why it was called Bohemian Hill. This, if you know where this church is, which is sort of on, it's just east of, or excuse me, just west of Soulard Market. This is St. John Nepomuk. St. John Nepomuk is at the heart of the Bohemian section of Soulard. So this was the area that the Czechs lived in. This section of Soulard gives the nickname of Soulard the Bohemian Hill. This was the first Czech Catholic church in the United States. And then right here was a building that housed a newspaper, and then right up here was a school that was run by the Czech community. And so people who were Czech would live right in this area. They could speak their language. They could go to church in their own language. I'm certain that there were bars all around where Czech was spoken. And so it just was a nice little area, just like the hill is associated with the Italians. Bohemian section was for the Czechs. And there are still remnants of it today. If you were to go to this church and look around the buildings, you will see the Czech language written on the sides of the buildings. That was just a little extra information for you, though. At this point, we're going to stop, and for our next lesson, we'll pick this up, and I'm going to pause here, and then tomorrow we're going to take a look at just the market area and see a little bit about what the history of the market is. So that's it for right now. This is day one of the Soulard area. Tomorrow we'll take a look at the market. Hey, History St. Louis, welcome back to part two of the Soulard area. Today we're going to focus on just the market. You will still need your worksheet from the Soulard neighborhood, and the bottom half of that worksheet will be the market. As you see here, and I needed to add this part, there has always been a market in this area since 1779. So we're talking 3 years after the United States declares independence. So the market has been part of the Soulard area for quite some time. The Soulard market will be turned over to the city in 1838. You're going to want to jot that year down in with the little notation that Julia Cerie Soulard, Antoine Soulard's wife, will donate 2 blocks of their property, blocks that had been used for the market. They will turn those market blocks over to the city in 1838. And since 1838, the city of St. Louis has been in charge of and has run the Soulard market. So they still have it to this day, and we'll talk about why that's somewhat controversial. The market originally was just a field where farmers would basically pull their wagons up and you would buy the farmers' goods and wares right out of their wagons. And so here you can see a picture of the market area, and it's just basically an area where the farmers and merchants would just pull their wagons right up and people would buy their goods right out of it. Um, and then the city of St. Louis decided that they wanted something a little bit more stable, a little bit more secure, and a little bit more foundational. And so in the late 1800s, they build these wooden structures. So you can see this wooden building right here. And then in the background, you can see some pavilions where it's just a roof with no walls. Again, another pavilion where it's a roof with no walls. And so they had some more sustainable buildings that would offer some protection from the weather and whatnot. And then that will last until the 1920s when St. Louis decides to upgrade once again and create the Soulard Market building. So under the Soulard Market building, you're going to want to jot down that the market building was started in 1928 and will be completed in 1929. So it takes about a year for it to be completed. The cost of that building was $267,000 in 1929 money, and it was modeled after a hospital in Florence, Italy. And so you're going to want to jot that down in your notes. If you go to Florence, Italy, and look for the Brunelleschi Foundling Hospital, which was built in 1419, it will look a lot like this building that you see here. What is the architectural style? If you remember, well, what you will know about this is that this architectural style is pretty simple to deal with. Anytime you see a rectangular or square building, that's number one. And then number two, anytime you see that building with arches, as you can see here, arch and arch and arch and arch, and then you see window, 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 window with arch. When you see that, that is Italian Renaissance. And so you're going to want to jot down that the Soulard Market building is Italian Renaissance. And again, it's super easy to pick out. They're almost always rectangular, and they always have the Roman arch in its design. The first floor of the building houses today a meat shop, 2 concession stands, a spice shop, a bakery, and a coffee shop. The second floor is actually a basketball court that can also be used as sort of a community area to hold meetings. There is a stage. I'm going to show you a picture of that basketball court here in just a second. But that upstairs part is one of the, not many people have seen it live. I have been around and been to Soulard Market literally hundreds of times, and I have never seen that basketball court before. Oops, hold on one second. Here we go. Here is that second floor. So for those of you who play basketball and have ever been to University City or Webster Groves, I believe that they have a, I know University City has the bleachers and the stands above the court. So this is the basketball court. You can obviously hold town hall meetings and whatnot when you can use the stage. And so it's just a nice little thing. I do not know what condition it is in today, having never seen it or been in it personally. I can't tell you, but I do know it's still there to this day. Some market facts about Soulard Market. It is open year-round. Obviously, though, the selection of what you can buy is much greater in the summer and springtime. In the fall, early fall, you're fine, but then in the late fall and winter, it is open, but obviously you're not being able to buy pineapple or any sort of summertime fruits. You know, not very many strawberries are going to be found in the middle of winter, but you can find other things there as well. But it is open all year round. It is open Wednesday through Saturday, and uh, that has been because of tradition. That the farmers would want Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday off. As you might expect, if you go there on a Wednesday, there are not very many farmers and vendors there. The same is true on Thursday. Friday, there's a little bit more, especially toward the evening, but then Saturday is when Soulard Market gets rocking and rolling, and by mid-morning, most of the stands have vendors, and if you go there anytime around noon, it will be busy, especially in the summer and spring and early fall. It will be crowded, and every stall will have some sort of vendor. I did email once the president of Soulard Market and asked her why they are not open on Saturday. To me, they would make a whole lot of money by taking that Wednesday and shutting down and instead going Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And her basic response was because of tradition and that the farmers want to have the Sunday off. That's why they don't do it. But she readily admitted that they would most likely have a much better selling day on Sunday, but they just have decided not to do that. Like I said before, it has been a market since 1779. Primarily, what do you buy there? Fruits and vegetables. There was a study done that says that it was about 20 to 30% cheaper to buy fruits and vegetables there than your common St. Louis supermarkets like Schnucks and Deerbergs. They also have all sorts of meat vendors there, flour vendors, lots of homemade bakeries. I know there's a couple Amish bakers that sell their goods there, and it's phenomenal. Um, and then you have all sorts of trinkets, T-shirts, incense, sunglasses. They have all sorts of homemade pastas, and then candies and stuff. It's basically, it's just really a market paradise there, and it's fun to kind of see what everybody's selling. There are live animals that are sold. Near Easter, you've got bunnies that are sold. You can buy live chickens. If you want to take one home and have have a fresh chicken dinner. As I said before in the first story, there is a bakery, there is a spice shop, there are two snack bars available. Um, and then this little video, which is attached and I'm going to play for you right now, gives you a little bit of what you can find there. So I hope you enjoy this. So there's just a really good look at what the farmers market has to offer. I am proud to say that that pet store is now closed. It was kind of disgusting, although she was very nice in saying nice things about it, but it was not the cleanest place. Now it is, I believe, a pizza place where you can go in and get fresh pizzas made. A much better turnaround, although they still have animals that you can buy, it's just not from that pet store. I want to go through and now just take you on a quick tour of Soulard Market via pictures. Here I am standing on Broadway looking into one of the outdoor wings. The Soulard Market building is the centerpiece, and then they have these wings that jut out, two on the right side, two on the left side of the building. Some of those wings are outdoor, some of those are indoor. So here is one of the indoor wings. These doors down here would lead into Soulard Market, the building, whereas behind me, it would lead to the outside of the market. And so you can see here that there are brick walls. So it's a little bit warmer in here because in the wintertime, there's no wind blowing through it, but there are no heaters in here. And as you can see, there are no fans. It's just literally light fixtures, ceiling beams, and then you've got these floodlights. So there is nothing fancy about Soulard Market. You can see that these stalls are just made out of plywood. Here they've been painted white in this section. In the outdoor section that we're about to see, you'll see that they're painted green. You'll notice though that above each stall, if there is a permanent person there, like they have a lease there that makes them permanent, they do get a sign that explains who they are. And so that tells you who some of the permanent ones are, whereas when you go to some of the outdoor sections, they're more temporary, and so they rotate, and so they don't have any signage above them. Here's one of the outdoor ones. Now on this one, they have some hanging tarps to try to block the wind from messing up everything. But this is an outdoor wing, so when it's 95 degrees outside, it feels like 95 degrees. When it's 25 degrees outside, it feels like it's 25 degrees. You can see this must be during the summer or late fall or early spring because they have a pretty good selection of fruits and vegetables. Again, though, you notice that there are no frills involved. It is just floodlights. How do you advertise prices? They basically have laundry lines, and they have pieces of paper or paper bags with the prices on them. So there is no permanent signage. It is all temporary. Again, the ceiling beams are exposed, no heaters, no fans. Again, concrete walkways, and you can see here that the plywood is painted green. These are not refrigerated stands. These are plywood, so this is not like Schnucks and Dierbergs. Again, here you can see how crowded it does get during the afternoon hours. This is probably on a Saturday or maybe a Friday night before sundown, but most likely this is a Saturday. Again, here's what it's like. This is on the indoor section again. And so, again, no frills. Here is in the winter time, and so you see people are bundled up. And so it does get kind of cold in there. Obviously, it feels a little bit better in this area. And then if you go inside of the market building, there is heat and air conditioning. So this is what the stalls look like without anything on them. This is the outdoor section right here in early winter or late fall. And then this is what the inside looks like. This is your meat market right here. This is one of the concession stands right over here. Behind the meat market is the coffee shop where you can buy coffee beans. On the other side of that is the spice shop. And then down here is a bakery. And then at the very end is another concession stand. Again, this one is taken on a Thursday. when my classes were on a field trip, and you can see that there's not much activity. You can see most of the stalls are abandoned. This is only fully furnished and fully vendored on a Saturday. This is what it looks like primarily on Wednesdays and Thursdays. This is one of my students eating one of the meat products from the meat shop. This is alligator on a stick. It is alligator sausage. She was not real happy about it, but she did end up eating it and said it wasn't too bad. So that is something you can look forward to purchasing if and when you go to Soulard Market. I want to quickly compare Soulard Market to probably the most famous market in the United States, and that is the one in Seattle known as Pike's Place Market. It is also old, not as old as Soulard, but it originally opened in 1907, but what you're going to see today is not from 1907. This has been updated over the years. Unlike St. Louis's Soulard Market, Pike's Place Market in Seattle is a major tourist attraction. I can't see very many tourists coming to Soulard, but almost everybody who goes to Seattle goes and visits Pike's Place. So let's take a look at what Pike's Place looks like and compare it. First of all, you have this beautiful neon sign that lets everybody know where you are and where it is. There is no real major signage like that at Soulard Market, which is one of my major bugaboos about the market. It's just that it doesn't advertise. You could very easily drive by the market and never know that you had just driven past it unless you knew what you were looking for. Inside the major courtyard, again, you see lots of neon signage highlighting where you are. This is what it looks like. And as you can see, it looks a little bit more like an outdoor mall than it does a market. And then it looks like really like a shopping center on the inside. You have actual light fixtures, you have a ceiling, you have more professional looking stalls, you have refrigerated stalls for the fruits and vegetables. You actually, once again, have light fixtures and whatnot. Obviously, we don't have the seafood that they do, but again, the signage is a lot more professional looking, and just a lot more contemporary. Again, just a much cleaner environment. So what I want you guys to do now is you are going to prepare yourselves for a Soulard Market debate. You are going to be assigned a worksheet that you can fill out that will organize sort of your arguments. And we're going to assign you 3 articles to read. And from those articles, you are going to kind of develop pro and con arguments to the question about whether Soulard Market needs to be renovated and modernized or not. Now that you have seen what Soulard Market looks like and compare it to Pike's Place Market, does Soulard Market need to be renovated or not? And so from your visual appearances, from what you've seen with Soulard Market and Pike's Place visually, plus what you're going to read with the articles, I want you to develop some pro and con arguments, and then you are going to write a 1-page paper that will highlight your thoughts as to whether or not it needs to be modernized or not, and that will be turned into the teacher. I also want to quickly go over the celebrations of Mardi Gras real quickly. Or in Soulard, Mardi Gras is one of them, and Bastille Day is the other. Mardi Gras is the beginning, or the day before the beginning of Lent with Ash Wednesday, and Bastille Day is basically the 4th of July equivalent for France. And so that's a little bit about Soulard Market and the Soulard neighborhood. I hope you enjoyed this look and can't wait to see what you have to say about Soulard Market and whether or not it needs to be renovated or not. Thanks for watching.